What happens when the mind betrays its own reality? When fear, delusion, and darkness consume your perception of the world and yourself? Today, we're diving into the most disturbing psychological conditions, where reality fractures, identities crumble, and the mind becomes a prison. From delusions that turn loved ones into imposters, to syndromes that make you question your very existence, these are the darkest corners of the human mind. Let's take a closer look. But be warned, what we uncover might just haunt you. Fregoli delusion, a mind trapped in fear. Imagine a world where every face you see is the same. No matter how different they appear, you're convinced they're all one person, stalking you. This is the terrifying reality of Fregoli delusion. Named after an actor known for his ability to disguise himself, Fregoli delusion causes someone to believe that one individual is relentlessly assuming different identities to pursue them. Imagine being unable to trust anyone. Every face is the same enemy in disguise. Friends, strangers, even family. There's no escape. This rare delusion is linked to damage in the brain's temporal and frontal lobes, areas responsible for recognition and memory. But what causes the mind to twist reality this way? Schizophrenia, brain trauma, or severe neurological disorders can trigger this nightmare. To the person suffering, it's not a delusion. It's a horror story where every encounter is a threat, and the enemy is everywhere. The most terrifying part? Sometimes the person they fear is themselves. Can you imagine seeing yourself in everyone else? Cotard's delusion, the walking dead. What if you believed you were already dead? That your body, your mind, your very soul had rotted away? This is the chilling reality of Cotard's delusion, where sufferers are trapped in the unshakable belief that they are dead, or worse, that they never existed at all. First described by Dr. Jules Cotard in the 1800s, this rare condition warps the mind's sense of identity. The afflicted are convinced their organs have decayed, their blood has dried up, that they are nothing more than a corpse. Imagine walking through life, feeling no heartbeat, no pulse, believing that everything, including you, is empty, cold, gone. Cotard's delusion is often linked to severe depression, brain injury, or neurological disorders. These distortions in brain activity make it impossible for the sufferer to feel alive. Even though their body still moves, their mind is lost in the grip of death. To them, there is no future, no tomorrow. They are already in their grave, watching their own death unfold. The terror of Cotard's isn't just the belief that you're dead. It's the overwhelming certainty that nothing can bring you back. What would you do? If you believed your life was already over, what happens when the mind betrays its own reality? Capgras syndrome, the fear of imposters. What if you were convinced that the people closest to you, your friends, your family, were no longer themselves? This is the terrifying world of Capgras syndrome, where sufferers believe that the people they know have been replaced by imposters, perfect replicas, but not real. Imagine looking at your spouse, your child, your best friend, and feeling certain they've been swapped with someone or something else. To the sufferer, it's not just a passing thought. It's an unshakable belief. An imposter has taken their place, wearing a familiar face to deceive them. Capgras syndrome is linked to damage or disconnect between the brain's facial recognition and emotional pathways. You see the face, but the emotional connection is lost, leaving only a stranger. This delusion can be triggered by schizophrenia, dementia, or brain injuries, and it turns the world into a web of deception, where everyone you once trusted is now an enemy in disguise. Imagine the horror. Your mind tells you that the people you love most are imposters, and no one can convince you otherwise. In a world full of imposters, who can you trust? When the ones you love become strangers, reality itself becomes the greatest threat. What if your own hand betrayed you, moved against your will, acted on its own as if it had a mind of its own? This is the terrifying reality of alien hand syndrome, where your own limb acts like it's no longer yours, an alien force taking control. Those with alien hand syndrome experience their hand moving independently, doing things they didn't decide, and can't stop. They may feel like a prisoner in their own body. The condition is often caused by damage to the corpus callosum, the bridge between the brain's hemispheres, or by injuries to the frontal lobes. This disconnect leads to a terrifying loss of control, where the brain's commands no longer align with the body's movements. Imagine the horror of not knowing what your own body will do next. It's not just annoying, it can be dangerous, unpredictable, and deeply unsettling. Some sufferers describe their rogue hand as an enemy, a stranger with its own desires. It can sabotage daily tasks, even turning violent. What would you do if your own hand refused to listen to you? What if it worked against you? There is no cure, only coping. Alien hand syndrome remains a terrifying reminder of how fragile our sense of control truly is. Reduplicative amnesia, living in a false reality. What if you believed that the place you were standing wasn't real, that it had been copied, replaced, or moved somewhere else? This is reduplicative amnesia, a rare condition where sufferers believe that a familiar place, like their home, a hospital, or even an entire environment, has been duplicated. It's not just confusion. It's an unshakable belief that the place they're in is a replica, a false version of the real location, which exists elsewhere. It's like living in a warped reality. This delusion is linked to damage in the frontal and parietal lobes, the areas of the brain responsible for memory and spatial awareness. It's often caused by brain trauma, strokes, or neurological disorders, which shatter the mind's sense of place. In their mind, everything is out of place. Reality looks the same, but feels wrong. People, buildings, entire environments seem like they've been swapped out, imposters of the real world. Imagine the isolation, the certainty that no one around you can see what you see. You're trapped in a world you no longer recognize. Reduplicative amnesia leaves its sufferers caught between two realities, one they believe in and one they can't escape. What if the world you knew had been replaced? Anton's syndrome, blindness in denial. What if you lost your vision, but couldn't accept it? What if your mind created an illusion, convincing you that you could still see? This is the haunting reality of Anton's syndrome, a rare condition where individuals are completely blind, yet their mind refuses to acknowledge it. Anton's syndrome is caused by damage to the brain's occipital lobe, the area responsible for processing visual information. Even though the eyes no longer see, the mind fills in the blanks with confabulations, false, imagined images that feel real. It's not a lie. They genuinely believe they can see. The mind invents a world of images to fill the darkness, a fabricated reality where their blindness doesn't exist. The consequences can be deadly. Those with Anton's syndrome are unaware of their blindness, and as their imagined world collides with the real one, they can put themselves and others in serious danger. But how do you convince someone they can't see when their mind tells them otherwise? In Anton's syndrome, reality is not lost, but replaced, leaving its victims trapped in an illusion they'll never escape. How do you face the darkness when your mind refuses to see it? Alice in Wonderland syndrome, a distorted reality. Imagine waking up one day and nothing looks the way it should. Objects grow and shrink before your eyes, your hands seem too big or too small. Welcome to Alice in Wonderland syndrome. Named after the classic tale by Lewis Carroll, Alice in Wonderland syndrome is a neurological condition where your perception of the world becomes twisted. Distances stretch, objects change size, and your own body might feel completely unfamiliar. This syndrome often affects the brain's occipital and parietal lobes, disrupting the way visual information is processed. It can be triggered by migraines, epilepsy, infections, or even stress. but the result is always the same: a world where reality bends and breaks. Those with Alice in Wonderland syndrome feel like they're trapped in a funhouse, a world where their sense of space, time, and even their own body betrays them. Your own hands might look massive, your feet distant and tiny. You might feel as though you're growing larger, stretching taller, or shrinking smaller. It's not just visual. Your body itself feels like it's changing. Even time itself feels strange. Moments stretch, then race by in a blur. For those trapped in this distorted reality, the world becomes impossible to trust. How do you know what's real? When your own senses deceive you. Alice in Wonderland syndrome isn't a hallucination. It's your mind distorting the very fabric of your reality, leaving you unsure of what's real and what's illusion. How would you escape if the world itself turned against you? Subscribe for more journeys into the mind's strangest disorders.